Good morning and welcome to my YouTube channel. This morning I've tried to venture down and try and find the Falls of Monzie. So this is reputed to be a supernatural area of Perthshire and an area in Strathearn. But what I'm going to do is, I've passed a number of falls on my way down. I found what I think could be the Monzie Falls. So I'm going to start to photograph this area, and then what I'll do is I'll climb back up the gorge. I'll just show you the gorge. So I'll climb back up the gorge and then I'll try and find the other two waterfalls that I saw, if I can get down to them. But at the moment, let's concentrate on these falls that we think might be the Monzie Falls. There's a lot of tree debris in front of the falls, so I might have to do a bit of climbing over the trees. But what I'll do is I'll start filming when I get over the burn. So this burn is called the Shaggy Burn. So what I'll do is I'll walk over there, I'll do a little scout about, and then I'll turn the camera back on, and then we can start filming. So I've now come up closer to the falls. I'll just lift the camera up so you can see what I can see. And then if I show you what's round about me, whilst this looks really busy and really forgotten, there are, off the back of the falls, I know it's barricaded with all those fallen trees and debris that's come down the river or the burn. I've actually walked up to the trees, and through the trees I can frame a shot of the waterfall. But what I can also do is I can climb on the trees and get compositions for images from there as well. There's also some side streams, so what I'll do is I'll take shots of side streams. There's also some fallen trees and little pools of water where we've got nice reflections. So again, I'll take compositions and photographs of these areas. We'll maximise as much as we possibly can down here because I can't see me coming back. So what I'll do is I'll get myself positioned and ready, and then I'll talk you through the composition that I've seen where those fallen trees frame the waterfall. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is show you how I'm framing up this shot. So as you'll see on the back of my viewfinder, you've got all these fallen trees. We can have a circular, let's get this back. So we've got a circular frame around the waterfalls. I've focused in on the waterfall over here, and in that way I've set my f-stop at 2.8 because I want to make sure that these trees here are all blown out and you can't see them. Well, they'll be blurred out, sorry. So what I've done is I've set my shutter speed at 1/8 of a second. I've set my ISO to 100. That's my focal point. I'll put my camera on a 2-second timer again. That eliminates any shake. Then what I'll do is I'll zoom in so you can see, and there you are. The foreground's out of focus and the falls are in focus. So what I'll also try and do is, while we're here, is zoom in. And what I want to do is get the waterfall coming in. So from where we've discussed composition in the past and we've spoken about rule of thirds, I want the waterfall to come in down on the left hand side. So if I then zoom in and focus on the falls, there, come back out, and then we'll get a different composition yet again. Now I've also put the polarizer on so that I don't get too much glare from the water, and as you'll be able to see as well, my battery is running out, so I'll replace that in a little while. So what I've done is I've just tilted the camera up just a bit so I can get a bit of a higher composition, because when I zoomed in earlier I saw the top of the waterfall was quite nice. So I've now got an image of those falls. What I might do, when I talk about bracket exposure, what I mean by bracket exposure is I can set the exposure from -3 to +3, and when I select my shot, that will then take 6 images, and those 6 images will be taken at the lowest exposure right up to the brightest exposure setting. So that's how I do that in my camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video now, and as usual what I'll do is I'll share the images as I go along, but also I'm going to stop and change that battery. Okay, so the other reason the battery ran out so quick is it was half full when I left the house, but it's so cold here. It's -6, you can't see it, and obviously through the camera you can't feel it, but it's bitter cold down here this morning. So what I'm going to do now is change the f-stop. So now what I want to do is introduce more foreground detail, but as you see, the higher up the f-stop range I go, the darker my image gets. So to compensate for that, I either slow down the shutter speed or I increase the ISO. So I'll just show you for demonstration purposes. If I increase the ISO, that then brightens up my image. The challenge with the ISO is the higher the ISO you use, the more noise or what would look like grain in your photograph. So some people like that effect, some people don't. So that's the reason that you would use ISO to compensate. If you like the grain, or if you are in a low light area, you will have to increase the ISO and try denoise it in post-processing. But what I'll do is I'll take it back to ISO 100 just now, and then see how far, I'll need to go back to see how far my shutter speed can go up. Now here's the other danger. If I just take a shot with that shutter speed of a second, what I don't want is the falls to look milky. So if I zoom in on that image, that's actually a really nice effect. So that's actually a really nice effect. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in just to make sure that that's actually in focus. And I'll actually take that shot again, because the danger with a slower shutter speed is that the falls become so milky, they just look all washed out. I think because it's dark, that's actually quite a really nice effect. So I'm going to zoom right in. I'm just going to turn my camera around so that I've got that full frame of the trees there. I've got the falls coming in on the bottom left hand side. So just double check for sharpness again and my focus. Select that, and that's really nice. So I like the way that those logs are actually framing the shot. I'm just going to tweak it up a little bit and just move it around just to the left, because that tree there was a bit in my face. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move forward, and just over those fallen trees there's a big pool of water, so it's too deep for me to stand in. But what I'll do is when I stand on these fallen trees, I'll use a lot of these fallen trees as foreground interest, and we'll see what we can get from a composition point of view, and then we'll just see how those images turn out. So let me get set up on these fallen trees, and I'll share with you what I can see. Okay, I've set my tripod up on the fallen trees. What I've got is a composition of the waterfall coming down from the left hand side. I've focused in on the water. I've actually increased my ISO to 200 because it's still a wee bit darker in here. I've reduced my f-stop to f8, and I've slowed the shutter speed down a little bit to ½ a second. So we'll take that shot, and then what I'll also do is I'll do a quick bracket exposure just to see. So yeah, there's lots of compositions in here, quite tricky. So what I'll do is I'll bring the camera up to here, and then that way you can see what I'm doing, but it also lets you see different angles that are possibilities for photographs, even in this kind of muddle of a whole bunch of trees. Okay, so I'm just standing behind the camera at the moment because it's just balancing on a rock. It's not the final position for the camera, but I just thought you'd be interested to see a closer up view of the falls. Okay, so we're over the other side of the fallen trees and we're in the pool in front of the waterfall. So what I've done is I've put my camera in the deep section of the pool, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set up a couple of shots and I'll walk you through as I take them. So what I've got is I've got a nice clean shot of the falls. I mentioned earlier that it was -6 down here, and there's a whole bunch of icicles hanging from that tree at the foot of the waterfall. So I'm going to get my long lens and I'll take some close-up shots of the icicles and I'll show you them later on. But at the moment we'll focus on the falls. So I've had to increase the ISO to 200. I've reduced my f-stop to f8. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there's a wee dipper bird on the rocks here in front of me. And I've reduced the shutter speed to ½ a second. And I think if that's a dipper, he's giving us a nice wee song in the morning. So what I'm going to do now is, there's a fallen tree where the roots have got the icicles on them. But that fallen tree is coming down to the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that fallen tree as a leading line from the bottom left up to the falls. I'll just make sure my camera's level. I'll double check my focus and make sure I'm focused on the water. And then we'll see how that shot goes. Again, I'm still using the polarizer. I've adjusted the polarizer. I might just reduce that shutter speed to 1/3 of a second. Yep, I'm just conscious I don't want a lot of glare on the water. I know there's no sun reaching down here and it is quite dark, but I don't want the glare. So what I might do is a portrait shot. So if I turn my camera around, now again I'll need to adjust the polarizer so that I've got the pool in darkness. I won't need to change my focus. So now I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to see if I can get a closer shot of the falls from a portrait point of view. I'll just zoom out a little bit to give myself a wee bit more space. Again, I'll need to check my focus. Alright, there. Test my shot. Oh, as I'm taking these shots, I'm noticing there's loads of little icicles that's been formed underneath the tree as well, so they could make some really nice shots. I'll do a quick bracket, exposure, and then what I'll do is I'll turn the camera back round and I'll take a similar close-up shot from a landscape view. And I'll just put that down a little bit. And I'll take a normal exposure as well. Now, I was wondering if I could actually shift myself a wee bit further right here, because I'm just going to see if I can actually zoom in on those icicles using this lens, but this isn't a powerful zoom lens. But let's see if I can, you just never know. I will get the bigger lens, but I've got the icicles in focus, and it's a really nice shot. I might get a better image of the icicles with the waterfalls in the backdrop from the other side of the fallen trees. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to venture to the right hand side, and I'll see if, as long as it's not too deep and I can get in there, what we can actually see from up. Finished taking shots of the falls. I went and I got my long lens and I took shots of the icicles, so I really hope they come out. But as I look behind me, down, the burn flows through all these rocks. There's loads of luminous green. I'm sure I've upset the wild garlic, because the smell of garlic is really strong down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a couple of compositions that might look quite nice. I mean, there's a lot of rock. I might actually use the portrait and zoom in actually, because that makes a nicer shot. And then what I'll do is I'll use some of the rocks as a leading foreground, and I'll focus into the middle. Alright, so I'm just going to take a couple of shots here of the streams that are coming around this rock. So there's some nice water formations that I can zoom in, zoom out. There's a fair bit of debris, like plastic sheets lying around, but I can get rid of that in post-processing. So what I'll do is I'll focus in and try and get the larger scene in first. And I've got a 6-second F8 ISO 250, focus in on that centre rock, and now what I'll do is I'm going to zoom in and drag, because there's a zigzag of the burn coming down and it's being split over this rock. I hope you see that in the right place. Okay, I've reached the top of the gorge. Oh, and I'm just going to have a coffee first and a breakfast bar, because I'm Absolutely shattered climbing out of that gorge. So I'd mentioned earlier that Strathearn, this area within Perthshire, had a past with the supernatural. So this area that I'm in, Monzie in Perthshire, Monzie is famous for burning the last witch in Scotland. And the last witch in Scotland's name was Kate McNiven. And Kate was a nurse, but she was also a healer. And she kind of fell prey to the gentry because they thought that she had transformed herself into a bee. And then when that story stuck, so hence why in those ages of the 1700s, witchery was quite common. But anyway, Monzie, it's a beautiful place. There's some really nice historic sites to see. They've got cup and ring stones all over Monzie. You've got Monzie Castle. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful here now this morning. It's still really, really cold, but it doesn't matter. I've got my coffee to keep me warm. And I'll leave that story of Kate McNiven with you. So thank you for joining me this morning. I hope you liked that video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do, it's free. And if you press the bell notification, that'll notify you when I publish future videos. So thank you, and here's to the next video.